And we're live. Welcome everybody to another Drupal and Coffee. 2-hour deep dive into Drupal. We'll see how far we get tonight. Tonight we're going to be taking another kind of diversion from our Drupal site making so that we can talk about accessibility and the experimental issue for enhancing the accessibility of Drupal 8. With us tonight is Mike Gifford. How is Canada, Mike?
We're looking forward to spring. It's coming our way shortly, but just see the tips of the grass at this point.
I feel you. Yeah, out here in Wisconsin. I mean, in Minnesota, Lowell's in Wisconsin, and we're starting to have some really nice, pleasant days. I walked out with a jacket today.
I've been wanting to go off and to sit on a patio and drink a beer and all that sort of stuff, but it hasn't quite happened yet. And there's still a little bit too much snow, unfortunately.
With us also is Lowell Johnson over in Wisconsin. How are you, Lowell?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Robot Lowell. Well, we wanted to talk about accessibility tonight, and we wanted to hand over to talk about in general a lot of the efforts that have went into improving accessibility for Drupal 8. There currently is an experimental feature to enhance the accessibility of content entry forms, basically anything with fields. And one person that's been deeply involved in that effort is Mike. Mike, what can you tell us about this feature?
So it was almost part of, well, for a brief while it was part of core in Drupal 8, and it's something that unfortunately had to be brought out into an experimental module and not released as a full core module at the last minute. It was a really unfortunate thing that it had to happen that way, but totally understand it. But it was unfortunate because there was just so much work that went into this. It was the issue that you've got in the background of your browsers going back to 2012, which was when Brandon Bowersox, who was a Drupal 7 accessibility maintainer, was looking at what we had managed to get into core for Drupal 7, and sort of one of the main areas that we had not managed to achieve was really trying to see that we had accessible form errors. And so somebody has a disability and they're trying to navigate through your website, and they enter in a form for contact information or for other, let's say you have a form for a shopping cart, and you hit submit. If you haven't filled in one of the required fields, if there's information that's inappropriate, you're going to get an error message. And it's right now you've got a Drupal 8 screen up, and the error message that you see is it's very much like the error message that's available in Drupal 7, but it's not really optimized for people with disabilities. And if your goal is to go up and have a website that is WK 2.0 AA compliant, which many of them are, you're not going to have that, because one of the elements of this web content accessibility guidelines is that you're able to give user feedback when they're filling in a form that explains to them that there's an error. And the way we've done it in Drupal 7 and in Drupal 8 doesn't alert screen readers that there's a problem. It's not really great for people who have low vision or who have or zooming their text in, like a lot of people. There aren't that many people who who use a screen reader on a regular basis, but there's a lot more people who have low vision and will go off and view the screen at 640 by 480. So many of our parents have done that. They might have a big LCD monitor, but they'll go off and still sort of see it in a large font so that they can go off and not put on their glasses. And it's there's so many places where for different kinds of disabilities, it's easier if you can build in as much semantics as possible. If you can structure it so that there's a notification for when you're clicking on the link that identifies both at the top of the page what the error is, but also right in the form where you're trying to go up and enter any information. If you have you have a link between the two, between something that's at the very top of the page as well as the information that is in the input form, right next to the input form, so that it's clear where the problem is.
Right, and I've got a kind of like a screenshot of some of this, and let me let you continue that, but I'm going to take over the focus of the camera for a bit. I can actually measure at the focus of the camera.
So yeah, went off and in 2012 started this long thread that was looking at various different ways to accomplish this and what are some best case scenarios. And one of the neat things about Drupal is that we've really been able to try and define best practices and to try and create a model out there that other people can refer to and sort of the best of breed for open source content management systems. And it was it's a great space to go off and to work with and to say, okay, well, there are individual sites that are designed to go off and be WCAG compliant, but if you're trying to actually do this for a content management system, there really aren't that many other systems that are anywhere near actually there's no other system I'm aware of that's anywhere near as accessible as what we've done in Drupal 7. Drupal 8 is a lot better, but we still are not as accessible as we need to be in order to meet our goals of WCAG 2.0 AA compliance. And this is a standard that is well recognized internationally. That the World Wide Web Consortium, the people who are responsible for the CSS standards, and HTML5 standards, and the area standards, they're responsible for creating these guidelines. And it's also interesting for people in the States. Many people will have heard about Section 508.
Right, and many governments require that the websites that are created are 508 compliant.
So Section 508, any site that is required to be Section 508, in fact, even beyond that, there are the Department of Justice is basically holding that any place that under the Americans with a Disability Act, if you have a brick and mortar store, you have certain responsibilities for accommodating people with disabilities, and they're holding those same standards to websites. And there's a lot of organizations, including Patagonia, and there's a whole bunch of there's I think hundreds of others that have been sued in the last few months because of the Department of Justice standards or moving to a standard of WCAG 2.0 AA and sort of rejecting the old standard of Section 508 because Section 508 was established in 1997 and it just hasn't been able to keep up with the web.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of history and discussion. This is a fairly long thread on GDO. And
a lot of great podcasts demonstrating what is helpful both visually to everyone. I mean, being able to have the section highlighted and to be able to have the specific error messages as to why a form validation was determined that the form was invalid.
And it is increasingly important for sites to be accessible simply because so much of the time we're running around between different tasks. We're trying to go off and fill in a web form while we're balancing a kid, and you miss something. You hit submit, and it's like, okay, what am I missing? Where is it? Where did I miss that piece? And if you can highlight as clearly as possible in a mobile-friendly fashion where that error is, and find an easy way for people to skip down to identify and skip to where the error is, and then help them through the process of completing the form correctly in a straightforward, methodical fashion. I mean, that will benefit everyone, not just people with disabilities, because we're all juggling too much stuff. I mean, nobody sits down in front of a computer. Well, not nobody, but almost nobody is right now not distracted when they're trying to go off and fill in a web form. And maybe you've got 50 other tabs open. Maybe you've got you're out on your porch and you've got the sun streaming in or something. But it's the more we can do to go off and to make it easier for people who are scanning the page to fill in the information, the better it'll be for everyone.
So I took the liberty of installing the experimental features, the inline form errors experimental feature, and I wanted to see if I can get it to demonstrate it. So I've got, let me just type in a password that doesn't match and then try to submit this. It's already telling me it's going to fail, but let's see if it fails in the right way. Oh,
So
the HTML5 validation is kicking in.
Yeah, it's not actually there's HTML5 validation and that works fairly well. But what you actually want to be able to do for a web page like this is one of the other problems, is that the HTML5 validation should actually be turned off with JavaScript and only be used as a fallback, and that there should be for people who are either the feedback form should be managed through, or the errors should be managed through JavaScript, or should be managed through the server, and just so that you can get those errors more effectively. But so here you can see that you've got two errors, and it identifies both of the password and the username, and you can click on either one of those links, and you'll zip down to the username or the password field and be able to fill in that information.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to zip down and make that as easy as possible. And again, there's a short description at the top and a full description right there in the form, so you don't have to zip up and down to try and understand where and what the problem is.
Yep.
So it's a nice, bold way to go up and understand
Hard
for everyone.
It is definitely right there.
Yeah.
It's nice that I mean, probably wouldn't want to have this for like a user creation form saying that a specific user has been taken. That's just the coding of the error message in this specific case.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And you're right. I mean, in terms of the places where there could be vulnerability, if you're putting forward too much information, I mean, then there's another space for exploits.
Yeah. This is just a bad example.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a useful one to try and think about. Well, where are the places that form errors can actually have security implications?
Yeah.
And I think that they definitely can, and it's important to try and think through some of these issues. But the problems that we ran into with why it got pulled out of core really had to do with places where the form API couldn't handle the kinds of either they couldn't handle it particularly well. Either there was duplicate information that was being sent, or there was information that was missing, and that that FAPI just wasn't able to be consistent and work as we needed it to, in order to have in order to work to the standards that Drupal is needing to work. And so actually, if you go down to number 3, actually, if you jump down to number 3 for a second in that list, there's a list of yeah, that one there. We can talk a bit. I mean, this is the master list of problems with the inline form errors, and this is
where someone should go to if they wanted to find something that they can help out with.
Yeah, I mean, this has everything in there, and I'm pretty sure that if we were able to go off and if somebody enabled the experimental module, that they'd be able to find different elements in here to go off and to verify that they still are problems, and to be able to help nudge these issues along, whether it's in creating new patches or creating tests for them, to be able to see that they get into 8.2. It didn't get into 8.0, obviously, and many of these issues are still tagged at 8.0 as bugs, but we're really trying to go off and bring this in at 8.2 if we can.
Okay.
That's where we're at in terms of trying to address these issues. And the major ones are the most important, and they're fairly easily defined there. And they're just things that you should be able to go off and expect to happen in Drupal 7 and work fine without the inline form errors, but are not working with it. And this is a great space to learn about Forms API and how FAPI works, and the complexity of this code. And there's very few people who understand it incredibly well. Sun certainly did, and Tim as well, of course, and there's a few others that do, but it's really quite complicated code that goes in behind creating these web forms that we all use and leverage all the time.
Yeah. So, in order to move forward with any of these issues, does it require modifying what the Form API provides in order to provide what it is missing, or is it just a matter of getting the markup right?
In most cases, I think it is more about getting the logic right and adjusting the Form API to see that in various different situations that FAPI works properly. So if we go to, let's see, to the first sort of child item there is to add function for shared logic between field set and form item, and this is one that I mean, there's essentially just, it needs to work properly, and right now there's duplication of logic going on, and that in I think in this one. What's that?
Which issue are you talking about?
This is 2275373. So this is pulled out of of a comment in the initial issue queue that brought in the inline form errors, in which there was a duplication between the field set and the form element functions, and that they needed to try and what they'd like to have done, and there's no code behind this at all, is to try and build a shared helper function so that if there's a field set like there is in checkboxes and radio boxes and I think in date fields as well, there's a field set that you want to be able to, at least there should be field sets in all of those ones. You want them to have a common, some sort of common functionality that works so that they work consistently between each other. And if there's an error, that you're highlighting the right element. So something that would be useful for this issue in particular would be to make sure to write down the steps for how to go off and repeat this, and to provide some screenshots and some steps on how to go off and to create this problem. And what else would be useful for this? It would be useful to starting to go off and to look at proposing an initial patch to go off and to create that shared helper function. That would be a useful thing to do. And it's just trying to go off and manage it so that if you have field sets and child items within that they are they're maintained, that they're managed in a consistent, unified fashion.
So if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying, if you can see my screen here,
let me go back.
If element has a field set then highlight field set when there's when there's something invalid.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to highlight the field set, and even to highlight the element within that field set. So it's as easy as possible to go up and identify it. But right now there's no the individual input field is addressed as I recall that it's the error is on the individual field or the individual item and not on the field set as a whole. So just being able to highlight both of them and have something so that there's a if you have an item that is in a field set that the field set behaves appropriately, and that is marked as a pink box.
Yeah, yeah. So to do create helper. I'm partly writing this down so I can help. You know, make this understandable. But I'm also writing myself a to-do list because we're going to be in Chicago this weekend. That sounds like a fun thing to create.
Absolutely. You know, and a great way to try and engage people in sort of looking at how the error messages in FAPI currently work and how they can be and to learn from that. Yeah. So that's you know one area that could use some attention. Another area is I mean some of these are in many ways bigger problems than just with the inline form errors, but they actually cause they cause a problem with the inline form errors because because we're inserting that information and that text into into the web form. So we should have a place for JavaScript status messages, and this is issue 77245. And this is an issue that's been open since 2006, and we haven't, in the last 10 years, managed to go off and to create a single space for JavaScript messages. And as as our web interfaces become so much more JavaScript heavy, it's more and more important to be able to control how information is being presented by or how those error messages are being managed in the JavaScript. Again, this is another issue that's slated for 8.2, and it's relatively short. There's only 128 comments in this, so reading through the history and the feedback behind this is it'll take some time, but it's not a full day activity, unlike some of the issues that we have. But it's you know if we can build on the patches that are here to try and create these patches and to work through some of the problems. So in this case, about a month ago there was a patch that was pretty good. That was essentially a re-roll of one that took place in I guess 10 months ago, but it's still missing some things. So it needs to be re-rolled to go off and address some information with the core libraries to see that that's set up properly and to see that that it's properly leveraging Drupal announce and including the Drupal announce code as a in one of the libraries that's required for this. Yeah, the patch needs to be rebuilt. But that should be something that is a manageable task, especially since there's already so much content around that and enough examples to look on. So that's really one that I think could be fixed this weekend if that's if there's a team of people around that.
Team of people. Who needs a team of people when you've got Lowell?
What do you think, Lowell? Lowell's got a speaker or microphone off, I guess.
He's like,
Hey
What's
guys,
that?
I try not to think too much.
yeah, Lowell's got microphone issues today.
My microphone's on now. It's not on. I'm not here. Where am I?
You're in the metaverse, Lowell.
Okay.
So there's a lot that can be done to sort of address a lot of these issues, and to try and find what works and what doesn't, and to sort of build on them. And we could go to the next one, which is to 933004. And this is to test that all form elements have a title for accessibility. And this is a bug in 8.0. So
What do you mean, like a title?
So one of the elements that it essentially needs a label. Like every input form needs to have a label associated with it in order to go off and to have, so that there's a semantic relationship between the description of the.
Oh, you need in like an HTML label.
That's right.
Okay, yeah.
And right now that when you're creating your web form, all of those elements have a title associated with it, which is essentially used to go off and to create that label. So unfortunately, there's some places where web forms do not have titles, and we need to be able to test for that to make sure that they are properly set up. And I think one of the areas where it's actually appropriate to not, one of the areas I think that we don't have titles in the existing interface is with the password, the password confirmation thing. I think that doesn't have I think the confirmation doesn't have a title, or it doesn't have a label associated.
Oh yeah, because it's this multi-field kind of thing.
Yeah, because they're joined. So, and I think they're so it's a. I need to confirm that, but
Let's confirm it right now.
we can definitely do that.
As soon as I always zoom. Silly keyboard. Let's get that off the screen. And then it's up here somewhere. Yep, this is the edit path. Let's see if I can get the whole thing.
It would have the confirm password. Sorry, I think that will have it there. So the confirm password is a label, so is password. So there should be a title included for both.
There's a label, yep.
Yeah. So I can't remember where there's an instance where there isn't a label associated with a input form, but in trying to create a standardized universal error message, we need to make sure that all form elements do have a title, because as we're spitting out these nice user-friendly errors, we want to make sure that we're describing the title of the input form, that so that you can have something you can click on. And if there's something that if there's an input form that you're creating that doesn't have a title, then you can't go off and click from the error on the top of the page down inline to the form that has the problem down in the deep within the web form, right? You need to have a title to associate that link from the top of the page down to the bottom. And so this is just a matter of going off and testing and verifying that all of the web forms have a title associated with them. Every element has a title associated with it.
Yeah, that's just using old school anchors.
In terms of the link itself, yeah, it just uses an anchor, but it needs the title of the input form in order to go off and to to wrap that link around.
Right.
And again, this is not that long an issue. It's only 166 issues at this point, but or comments at this point. But
that other issue was several orders of magnitude old. This only has 5 digits. This issue number only has 5 digits. The thing that immediately comes to your eye, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's like 2 orders of magnitude old.
It's true. It's true. And some of these things just need to be fixed and taken care of, and they've been reported a long time ago, and just need to be addressed. And I mean, Everett Zufeld, another Drupal core accessibility maintainer, went off and created the issue to test all to test all form elements have a title for accessibility. And he did this, now 6 years ago, which is a long time. It shouldn't take that long for us to go off and to identify and to address this issue. And there's a bunch of code to go off and to try and to work with. But we need to go off and to push that forward and make sure that we address the missing failures in the unit testing to see that that's set up properly. And Tim's even got some direction on how to do that. I'm unfortunately kind of incompetent when it comes to creating unit tests, and so I haven't been able to go off and to take the time to go off and to learn how to go off and to add things. So when Tim says, let's go off and use the new assert capabilities, it's like, well, I don't know what that would mean, but there are people who do, and we can examples we can draw on, and things where we can fix issues like this. And
well, maybe we can pair up on that, because I'm starting to learn unit tests outside of Drupal, just straight up PHP unit tests using PHP unit, and so hopefully we might be able to pair up on that, write some units. Make a blitz during DrupalCon, whatever.
That's right. I mean, and this one should be fairly straightforward to set up, and shouldn't be that overwhelming an issue to take down, because it just looks like there's some additional unit tests that need to be built for this issue.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike. Have we ever tried to just focus on the markup? Have we ever made like a style guide of HTML form fields and try to figure out what markup we want for that outside of the context of how they're going to be implemented in Drupal?
I think that the closest that we came to that was there's certainly an effort to go off and clean up the markup, and who was it? The king of Denmark. Why am I blanking on his name? So there was certainly an effort to go off and clean up the HTML and have it as clean and strict as possible. But so many of these errors that are blocking it are actually, it's in the logic behind the HTML. So you can have as clean HTML as you want, but if you don't have a it's the logic behind it that was the blocker, not the HTML itself.
Sure. The reason I bring that up is because I almost think that it would be kind of easy to say that, like, hey, here's the HTML version of what we need the forms to be.
Right.
And then maybe even go as far as to say, here's a distribution that sets up a Drupal site to have a form that mirrors the kind of form that you see on this HTML page.
Right.
Now, go and make it. Make it do the thing it should do.
And it might be possible to do that. It's just that I mean, every distribution, of course, leverages core as well.
Yeah.
and you're going to have to rework a lot of FAPI within that distribution anyways in order to make these error messages work appropriately. In terms of the example HTML, probably the closest we came might have been, actually there's, when Brendan was setting this up, I think he came close to creating mock-ups of how how he had sort of envisioned this to be done, and what the HTML would look like. He's mostly looking at the visual elements, not actually the HTML. But
I've got that on the screen right now.
yeah, but it's to some extent it's there are examples within the initial page that we've so issue 1493324, which was the issue that we where we brought in the inline error messages. That probably had the best the best implementation of or description of the HTML, because a lot of these things were debated and discussed in length in this
149.
1493324.
24.
That's a rather epic issue queue that went on. Do we hit 500? I'm just going to page 2 of the issue queue. Whenever you find an issue that's gone on to page 2, it's like, well, this is, wow, it's a real challenge for the Drupal interface to deal with that many form elements.
It is. And we love to comment.
It's true. Okay, so this issue has 603 comments on it.
Yay!
That's right. For the win. And yeah, it was a really extensive marathon to try and bring that into core. And one of the reasons that it's so important to try and get this fixed up and get these remaining issues addressed, so that we can bring this experimental module in as a full-fledged module for it's just part of the default core. And you know, it may be that people would want to be able to disable the inline form errors, so that it's not, so that you could have a simpler error form for a lighter delivery. And you know, there may be use cases where you wouldn't want to have the additional information, like if you're if you're trying to go off and build a website that performance is all that matters, and that you don't really care about user inputs. Maybe you know there's no opportunity for user feedback or user creation, content creation. You're sucking information from an external database and just using Drupal as a front end to display and organize that information. Well, in that case, having a pretty form error is a complete waste of time, since there's no input that you're going to have for your Drupal site. So I can see wanting to be able to disable it, and that would be a totally fine thing to keep in core. But it's this by default, we want to have as many people as possible supported by the infrastructure, so that so that people who are distracted, or who have disabilities, or who are engaging with Drupal while doing something else, are able to go up and to address form errors as quickly and effectively as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, these screenshots are gold.
What was that?
These screenshots are gold.
Yeah, and it's useful to sort of see, well, where are the places that these failed, and what did we in the long trials of identifying where it works and where it doesn't work, and Drupal is such a complicated interface, and it's there's so much that we're using using core and extending it in so many different ways. And And a lot of testing went into this issue. Not enough, unfortunately, because we weren't able to address these issues early enough in order to get them fixed as part of core, and the whole Drupal 8 process took longer than anyone wanted it to, but it got us a great way ahead. So it's just there's certainly just more that needs to be done to get this feature in.
Can we actually get this test to work again?
Which one? So this is your. Where are you in?
So, looking at the issue that was kind of like the 600 comment issue, 1493324. There's a link to someone named DM Schmidt's error style module, which is supposed to be able to show every kind of form field and having them error so that you can see the error states for all those form fields.
And what happens with that? Maybe I haven't clicked on that link, so I'm not sure. Well, I haven't clicked on it recently, anyways.
It looks like a Drupal 8 module. Super simple.
Excellent. So that should work.
I guess if its underlying dependencies hasn't changed.
But it's close. It would probably be close enough that you could. This is from March of 2015, so it shouldn't have changed that much.
Yeah, it last changed a year ago.
So.
Hey, I'm going to try to get it working.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be kind of nice because, we are not the only open source project, the only project that is concerned about accessibility.
No, I mean, everyone should be, right?
Exactly.
And I've got to say, just briefly, this is a great opportunity to talk about PHPStorm and how great this IDE is, and it's a. I'm glad to see that they were opening this up and taking a look at this this module with PHPStorm. It's nice that they give.
Are you clowning me right now, Mike?
I do think it is good. I'm really happy that they give copies of their IDE to the Drupal community and other open source communities for sure.
Now,
but I think you are the biggest promoter of PHPStorm. So.
I have to get used to Drupal's file structure like every time. I'm trying to add my modules into sites. It's weird.
Yeah, it's.
But I actually built this site using Drupal Composer, which was a wonderful day. I was able to just do one composer command, and it was able to construct the site. Maybe this is the one that I did that with that. Maybe it's not. I think I did a different folder, but it actually brought the vendor folder out of Drupal.
Right.
Which is something my PHP compadres love to see.
Well, that's primarily for security reasons, right?
Well, yeah, but also it's because it's a general best practice.
Right.
Here we go. See if I can clone it here.
Having additional code exposed is always a problem, but.
Yeah, PHPStorm continues to get better, but the main things that I like to talk about to regular people about why it's so great are things that have been added for like the last 2 years or so. Like the ability to get a debugger working real fast, the ability to ask the IDE for information about the code that you're writing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this isn't a PHP video, or a PHPStorm video. This is a accessibility issue. So I'm looking at the code. I'm not seeing any glaring errors that are being reported out about some incompatibility, like if they changed form base or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is one of these things where every open source project should be thinking more about accessibility. The Drupal community, I think, is the furthest ahead, and there's more people who've been involved in spearheading that, and I've been in a great position of owning a small company and being able to have enough resources to be able to devote time to addressing these issues as much as I've been able to do. But I also know that the WordPress community, which is substantially larger than the Drupal community, is catching up to us, and they're working to take some of the ideas that we've done and to improve on them, and hopefully we'll be able to find ways of taking some of their ideas eventually and bringing them back to the Drupal community as well.
Well, the reason why I brought that up was because, there's accessibility, like I said, should be everyone's concern. And I think there are people who have worked out the markup for accessible form fields, but not really cared about any kind of implementation in any system.
Right. And it's the system thinking is really quite a bit different, because it's not one of the big challenges about web accessibility is that people think about it in the context of the site that they're presently developing, and people are worried about either bad press or about the possibility of a lawsuit. There's all kinds of reasons that people need to make their own individual websites accessible. But few people sort of look beyond their own site and look at the bigger system and the bigger problem and say, what are the things that we can address on that larger level to try to see that we're able to go off and make this more accessible for everyone. And I've got a few friends who reminded me that we're all temporarily able-bodied, and you can't assume that any of the accessibility, any of the functionality that your body has now will necessarily be there tomorrow.
Right.
So, you could lose your vision. You could just break your arm and suddenly have to be trying to type one-handed, and there's all kinds of ways that individuals can, based on medication or based on their just basic aging, have less capabilities than they had when they were young and as fully able as they can be. So this is the forum with all the errors.
Yeah, this is my own version of the site, and it currently does not have the experimental feature turned on. Looks like I blew it up a little bit.
Right.
User error value is an invalid render array key for a specific kind of element.
Right.
It's interesting, but
it's still kind of working.
Yeah. Let me see if I can enable the accessibility feature. Remember what its machine name was?
I don't remember, no, unfortunately.
Maybe it's got the word inline in it.
Let's see.
I'm taking a long shot. My cat just decided to jump up on the table to this weird microphone sounds. I'm blaming you. But the link did work, and it rendered all the form elements. I have a Bootstrap theme on. Still thinking. Oh yes, it's there.
Excellent. Yeah, inline underscore form underscore errors. That's the machine name. That's right. Exactly right.
Bam.
Yeah.
refresh that page.
It is interesting to go up and to look at some of the areas that still need more work as well, and things that we don't necessarily think about. But one of the things that we still don't have in Drupal 8 is when you're uploading files. There's nothing. I think we go up and tell the user now when the file has failed, but we don't actually tell the user semantically with it, so that a screen reader can go off and can hear this if the file is successfully uploaded. So just the, we can give you the failure, but not the success. Which is again something you don't think about when you're like, because visually you get the identity, you can clearly see when that happens, but we're not passing that information along semantically.
Yeah. Well, that would certainly be something to spell out. See, to me, it just seems like there's something wrong with the process, in my opinion. That the end result is that we want a client-facing part of the page to display a specific set of markup so that users, screen readers, can get the right kind of markup to do what they need to do.
Right.
So I almost don't even want to even talk about Form API or other kind of systems that will eventually make the right markup. I want to be able to see what the right markup is supposed to be and make sure that it is right. Because things like figuring out how to display the right kind of audible message to users whenever they successfully upload a file is something I don't think we've even figured out what the markup is supposed to be for that.
I mean, there's nowhere to go up and well, there's ways to go up and display the error, but not the there certainly are some interesting questions about how we would want that to be displayed and where we would want that to be structured. But for the most part, I think that we have defined those in the inline form error. There certainly are some places that we could use some additional work and some usability work as well to try and see that we have enough places. Like there's Drupal core is so flexible. You may have a number of places where you could drag and drop multiple files and reorder and organize uploaded files in a complex series of tables, and that makes sense from a Drupal form implementation perspective. But how do you make an interface flexible enough so that no matter how complicated the web form is that you're trying to build, that you're able to go off and to convey effectively the error to the user at that particular point.
Exactly. Yeah. One-off solutions versus generalized solutions.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much of the time we are looking at trying to step back and trying to understand in a very specific context what we would like to have, and we have models for most of those basic user types, but there's going to be some cases where it's more complicated. And
then if you implement it properly for 7, Drupal's stock administrative theme, and then you drop in another theme to take over the administrative interaction, or even if you want to get your form to use your theme's set of styles.
Right.
Or do you bust everything up?
And one of the areas that where are we here? I think this is one of the areas that we ran into was being able to provide custom error messages, so that if you want to have one of your forms, you want to be able to say, let's say on the weight form, if you put 0 as far as your weight when you're looking at your form, and you wanted to be able to put forward a joking email like, Chris, you do not weigh 0 pounds. So you could
Very much so.
you could go up, and you might want to be able to program that in. And we thought we had that fixed in Drupal 8, and then there was an effort to try and backport it to Drupal 7. But then either something changed or it hadn't been sufficiently tested, and so we needed to try and bring that back so that there was, again, the ability to code for custom error messages. But there just haven't been enough people putting time and effort into this who've been extending and evaluating and addressing these issues, and it's amazing that there's nearly 4,000 people who contributed to core, and I'm assuming that there's at least 400 people who contributed to accessibility issues in Drupal 8, probably closer to 1,000 given the length of time and the number of them, and the number of people who contributed over the lifespan of Drupal 7 and 8. But it's still a real challenge to try and get that right and to address it from a general use case to a specific use case in a way that reflects the flexibility that Drupal provides. I'm not sure where that custom form error issue is. I should be able to go up and pull that up. And yeah, there are other issues that sort of stop this from getting into core. I mean, one of them is 2563905. And we found instances where the form error message was being repeated after the validation was fixed. And again, this stuff shouldn't happen when you're in a production-ready enterprise module, and it's not that it would interfere with anyone, any production website. Like, you could still enable the inline form errors. I don't think that there's anything that I've seen in the inline form errors that has been a major deal stopper for production sites that want to use Drupal and need it to be as accessible as possible. But it's been a major deal stopper for just that consistency of the user interface and the ability to go up and have that predictability and control that we needed for a finalized product.
Well, I know that one of the issues that landed recently was the being able to unit test JavaScript behaviors to be able to actually use the part of our testing framework that is able to spin up a version of the site, kind of like a unit test, functional test kind of thing, but
right.
as a unit test. Maybe I'll be able to pull up that issue. I think I've been tracking it, but it landed recently, and so
now we can start using JavaScript to or building unit tests for the JavaScript.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dashboard. Yeah. Oh wait, looks like it was backtracked.
Oh, that's too bad.
But for a moment, it was committed today.
I think that this it's frustrating, but it's also really great about the Drupal process, and that there's so many people working so hard on these issues that are so interrelated, and yet we need to have more people being involved, more people taking a look at some of these issues and saying, okay, I think I can go off and take on this piece of the pie, and this is something that I want to learn a bit more about, or I think I can develop some mastery around it, and sort of investing in you can't take on the whole project of fixing the issues within Drupal.org, but you can pick out your piece of the pie and try and address that. And I've tried to do that with accessibility over the last, well, for Drupal 7 and Drupal 8, trying to spearhead an initiative to try and improve this within the community and to raise more awareness. But so many other people have done this for other issues, and you know, whether it's Gabor or on internationalization or Bohan on usability. I mean, it's wonderful to kind of see how far we've gotten and what people who've sort of who've taken their piece of the problem and made it personal to try and reduce the number of errors and produce a product that we can all be really very proud of.
Yeah.
Even though it's not perfect, right? But we can, you know, sort of nudge it ahead and continue to find ways to make it better.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's one of the things that I'd love to see more people start doing is to look at enabling the inline form errors module and just trying to go off and to enable other modules that are other contrib modules to see how well it works and what are some of the problems that we run into when you start using contrib modules that haven't been built for it. Are there places where it fails, that it stops the usability of that module? Are there times when you get error messages that are problematic, that again destroy the user experience or break the functionality of the website? I don't know that many people that are using the inline form errors in a production site right now. There aren't. Do you have any idea how many Drupal 8 modules are in use at the moment?
How many Drupal 8 modules are production ready?
How many Drupal 8 websites are there?
Oh, maybe we could find the stats on that if we looked at the Drupal 8 download page.
Yes, that would make sense. Well, that would give you the number of downloads, but if you want to look at the usage, you look at...
You know, I thought I saw a link last week on a place to track the overall usage of Drupal 8. I just don't know what it is off the top of my head. But I mean, it's ticking up. That article is showing basically a graph of Drupal 6, Drupal 7, and Drupal 8 sites, and they showed that there are far more new Drupal 7 sites these days than Drupal 8. That eventually we expect that there will be a crossing point between new Drupal 8 sites versus new Drupal 7 sites.
So according to I'll share the link with you, but there are 20,000 Drupal 5 sites. There's 100,000 Drupal 6 sites. There's over 1 million Drupal 7 sites and only 75,000 Drupal 8 sites. So it's definitely more than the Drupal 5, not as many as the Drupal 6, and definitely on the way up. I mean, it was we're getting in probably it's let's see, roughly 10,000 new Drupal 8 websites a month, based on what I can see here. So
it's
I'm sure that. What's that?
It's promising.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many more modules that are moving in that direction and making it easier for people to adopt Drupal 8, and there's so many more reasons to move to Drupal 8 as well. But it's again, it's a big jump, and there's a lot of people who haven't been able to train up or to look at the modules that we want to have, that we need to have for implementing reliable Drupal websites. Like even the libraries module is not there yet, and I'm trying to go off and to nudge some of the contributed modules along as best as I can, but like so many things, there's only so much time, right? So.
Right.
Uh,
Oh, it was a lot of new reported Drupal 8 sites in the first week of March here.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's quite significant for sure. Between the 28th and March 6th, absolutely. And hopefully we'll see that continue to rise because we're now, we should hopefully see the results in a couple of days for the middle of March as well. So.
Well, Mike, I think we hit it.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about how we would talk about accessibility until we've covered all the issues and run out of things to say. I think we hit it.
We've touched on tons of issues, and it's yeah. I think that if people can go through the list of issues associated with that one and try and to finalize the new inline form errors and look at some of those issues and see if they can nudge ahead the child issues. That would be really so important to try and to get this functionality into core.
Well, I will be at the Code Sprints in Chicago at mid-camp.
Excellent.
And I understand that there are a number of people that are gathering to sprint around specific issues. I'll be able to have a good half day to spend on accessibility to see if I can move this further. I think, given the notes and kind of like my small little checklist, things I can actually get done within the amount of time. I don't think that I'll be able to create a helper function, but I think I should be able to re-roll that very, very old patch 77245, and I think that I really like to tackle being able to just write or create an HTML version of the forms and the form errors, and I think that by using that GitHub module that creates just a really big form API array of all the different kinds of forms elements that you could use. Might be a good place to start if I could just convert that to HTML and then compare that with other kinds of examples of HTML only versions of accessible form fields.
Absolutely. And yeah, and having a record of what we want and what it should look like is I think that's a great way to go up and to highlight the direction that we need to go and what is missing and even just trying to go up and say what are the use cases. And it's bizarre to go up and to think that in Drupal 8 that it's hard to go up and to track down instances for recreating various different kinds of errors and to identify the number of different kinds. Like if you go up and modify the colors in the color module, you can go up and produce some very unique error messages within those pages. And there's other places that you can produce errors in core quite easily, and without sort of running into the HTML5 barriers that pop up, which are good, but again, it's trying to find that optimal solution that works as best as possible for everyone. Yeah, but yeah, thank you very much for the time and the interest, and I'm definitely watching all these issues, trying to go off and to help nudge them ahead. So if you need to reach out and ask any questions, you can. Probably the best way to do so is on Twitter at @mgifford, and that's a great way to connect with you.
Yeah, well, I'll try to ping you in the morning, and then I'll ping you when I have to take off that day to get on back home to let you know of the progress I've made. And I guess, I don't know, will you be on IRC that day?
I'm not generally on IRC. I do get on it if necessary, but there's just so much other type of media that I'm on, whether it's
Yeah.
Twitter or Google Plus or LinkedIn, and so I've decided to go off and only go on IRC when it's necessary. But I can definitely get on IRC for specific times and can be on. I'm not sure I'll be able to be on for all of that, but I can try and be on for some of the camp to answer questions or to get feedback, and also be in New Orleans as well. So
Yeah.
you're heading there as well, Chris?
Oh, yeah.
Marvelous. It'll be good to see you in person.
Yeah. It'll be an awesome time. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for coming on, and thank you again for a robotic guest, Lowell.
Thanks.
We'll see you next week for another Drupal and Coffee.